Mark 14:12-21. So the Passover, some similar to the donkey and the colt, somehow God already prearranged for himself. He, the owner here, the owner of the house knows that he needs to prepare a large upstairs room furnished and ready, and the disciple just needed to go, where's my guest room, with um, quoting Jesus' word. And it's hard to understand this, but when I read George Mueller, the biography on George Mueller, it's exactly what happened to him. Like there was a account of him and his orphans just running out of food, and they sat at a table and they prayed expecting that the food will arrive, and it did. Like, God worked through the baker to wake up and bake the bread and wanted to give it to the orphanage, and he worked in, I think, a milkman delivery. So it's like the way that God works is so mysterious. You read this, you don't understand it, but when you compare it to what George Mueller, who is someone that lived like not thousands of years ago, just like maybe less than 100 years ago, and he experiences the same thing, and like it's so powerful the way that God works. He can work through dreams, he can work through vision, he can just tug at a person's heart, and all they need to do is say yes to him. Like, for example, it might be like, oh, this morning I wake up and I feel like, oh, I would like to give like some money to this charity, and that charity probably might be in a situation where they needed that money. So God puts like desires in our heart that aligns with his will, and all we need to do is act on it, and then we are actually included in the way that God works. So it's like he probably did it through a vision or a dream or something like that, in the person who had the colt, and also this person who has this room. And when I read it, I didn't read George Mueller before, but just within the last year I did read him, and now this passage have a new meaning and a new light. I can see it in a new light. And then after that, um Jesus said, like, kind of reveal who it was that will betray him. The disciple, for some reason, did not understand it, even though there's like a clear sign. They didn't understand it, but only in hindsight. And then after that, Jesus said that, woe to the man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been good for that man if he had not been born. So I think this implies that Judas had a choice, that he was born so that he can make a choice. He could choose to betray Jesus or not, but he went according to he went and he continued and he betrayed Jesus. So I wonder if when Jesus chose the 12, if Judas, he knew for sure, would betray, or he chose the 12 that one of the 12 possibility will betray him. I think it's the first one. I think Jesus chose Judas even though he already knew what Judas would do. However, that doesn't mean that Judas did not have a choice in it, because Jesus said that it would have been better not for him not to be born, because he was born. I'm not sure how to say it, but it's the hard, kind of like hard. It's hard to understand God's omniscience and our free will, before I understand it as God knows all the possibilities that will happen, but we choose one of it. But I'm not sure if I could still hold on to that view. And this, yeah, it brings up that question again. However, when a hard question like that come up, I have to rely on what I do know. I do know that Jesus is not a liar. I do know that the resurrection is well documented, and the changed lives of the disciple is really like solid proof. I know that the disciples are not liars, and they died not for a lie. Conspiracy theories, conspiracy like break down when it's like when people are spread apart, and the disciple, even though they weren't blood related and they're spread apart, they still died for the truth that they believe in. And so there are a lot of evidences pointing to the truth of the resurrection. And if the resurrection is true, then what Jesus said is true, and he is the Son of God. And so our faith hinges on the resurrection, and the resurrection to me is true, and it's well evident, like it's reasonable to believe in. And so when you read that, and then Jesus said that God is good, and Jesus said that he is the Son of God, and he came to fulfill the law and prophet. He validated the Old Testament and the New Testament. And so we know that through the God of the Bible revealed to us, God is good, God is just, God is truth, God is life. And with all that together, we can trust in the character of God and trust in the validity of what he says. So even if we don't understand fully how God does this, we can still rely on that to continue with our faith and not let these kind of things that we don't understand bother us or like turn us away from our faith, because God is infinite and we are finite. It's like trying to explain to an ant how to build the Empire World Building, or how the mechanic of a car works, or how an ant can build a car, or how an ant can build an airplane. You can't, it's just not possible. And so so to get something to contain an infinite God in our finite mind, that is arrogance and prideful. And so I would stay in my like unknowing, like not knowing everything, and be content that God, the God that I serve, is good, and there's reasons. It's beyond a reasonable doubt that I believe that about God.